Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot of basketball, hence the tie. We'll talk a little Pelicans, as they do deserve to get top billing tonight. We'll talk some college basketball, as we're in the midst of all the conference tournaments. And, of course, we won't forget about the New Orleans Saints. A little bit of a deadline coming up on Drew Brees, and, of course, free agency get ready to start next week. We'll jump into all of it tonight. We got a great panel. Last time these two guys were on together, it was fantastic. I'm expecting it just as good tonight. Les East of CrestCitySports.com and a whole lot more. He'll tell you about that. Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports are our guests. Gentlemen, thanks for coming down. Certainly appreciate y'all being on the show tonight. And Les, lay it out for us, everything you're involved in, if you would.
Well, thanks for having me back. Nice tie, by the way.
Thank you, my friend. I'll give my wife that credit.
I figured as much. I'm working with CrescentCitySports.com, as I have been for quite some time, writing with NOLA.com and Saturday Down South, which is heavy emphasis on SEC football, and also the Associated Press. So I get to cover Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, high schools, keep my hand in a little bit of everything, which I enjoy. So it's going well. Well,
glad to have you back. Chris? I had Sean last week, and of course, you guys must not know what to do with yourself at the Fox 8 sports offices anymore. All those shows you had, they were fantastic during football season, and of course, things have slowed down a bit, but things really haven't slowed down in terms of covering things because you got so many different things that are happening at the same time.
Yeah, especially, like Les was saying, dabbing a little bit of everything over there, and we're never really slowing down too much. I feel like we've always got something cooking up at Fox 8 and a lot of good things on the horizon. But obviously right now, college baseball season's big. College basketball, we've got a lot of great teams here, so we've been all over that. And then Sean Fazan himself, he's been all over Fox8Live.com and our Final Play app, counting down some free agents that the Saints could be looking at. We'll get into that, and I'll mention some of those names. But a lot going on, and it'll certainly crank up. Depending on what the Saints do these next, couple weeks in free agency, and then with the Pelicans in this win streak they've got going on.
No doubt. And, of course, they let everybody know about the app because that's a great way to get your blog and everything that's going on over Fox 8.
Yeah, the Final Play app is terrific. I mean, it's called the Final Play app. It's black and gold, but it really touches on everything NFL over the next couple weeks, obviously, with free agency. Even right now, counting down to free agency, getting into the NFL draft, we'll be taking a look at a lot of the guys that the Saints could have their eyes on. Plus, with LSU's Pro Day coming up and a couple Tulane guys that are making some noise, that made some noise at the Combine and will be drafted as well. There's always something on that Final Play app with NFL news. And right now, I mean, that's the number one way, I would say, to keep track of who's visiting the Saints, who's checking out the Saints, and all those free agency and trade rumors.
Right, because it's going to really crank up next week with all the visits and everything else. We'll see if the Saints will strike fast, or are they going to hold back like they've done. They've done both.
Yeah.
They've done both, so we'll see what's going to happen. Let's talk about the Pelicans. 10-game winning streak. Of course, Anthony Davis playing at an MVP level. Drew Holiday playing at an all-star level. Davis, Western Conference Player of the Week last week. Western Conference Player of the Month in February. They are fourth in the West. They're fourth in the West. If it ended today, which it doesn't, they would host a playoff series at the Smoothie King Center. If they win on Friday and Portland loses, they move into the third spot in the West. Again, mind-boggling for a team that lost, one of the best centers in the NBA in Boogie Cousins. 9 out of the next 10 at home, which is really bodes well for the Pelicans, but the schedule maker really did them no favors, especially on the last part of this schedule. And look, even though they're home, boy, they got to play one set of games, 3 games in a row because of the Pacers game that got rained out in the Smoothie King Center. We don't want to bring that
rained
up.
out in the Smoothie King Center.
It's amazing. Yes, it is. It is amazing. But what's amazing is the way this team has been playing. Les, I've talked about it on the radio show. We talked about it here. And I'm not knocking Boogie Cousins, but this team is playing so much better as a team than they were when Boogie Cousins was here. The ball's moving. They're hitting the offensive boards. They look like they're playing much better defense than they were. Matter of fact, the stats will show they're playing much better defense. And, you hear the players saying they've never been on a closer team. AD said he's never been on a closer team than he's been with this team. And it's really been a miraculous turnaround. Really, this is what Alvin Gentry promised the fans of New Orleans when he came here, this up-tempo type of basketball that we're seeing, and they're playing to perfection right now.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. If you look back, when Cousins got hurt, it looked like they were just starting to figure out how to maximize Davis and Cousins together. He goes down, and all of a sudden everybody's wondering, is the season going to fall apart now? They lose 5 out of 6, and it looked like it was going to be that they were going to fade that lethargic performance in Philadelphia, and then they go into New Jersey, almost below a 27-point lead. They win that game. They haven't lost since. It's just amazing where they've come from that initial series of losses after Cousins went down. And you're right that they're playing better. And like you said, this isn't really a knock on Cousins because it looked like they were starting to figure it out. So if he hadn't gotten hurt, who knows what they would have looked like with him. But the fact is they had to remake the team, bringing in Nikola Mirotic, and then, Emeka Okafor has actually been an impact player. Bringing him in, Drew Holiday's obviously getting more comfortable with an evolving role on the team, and it's just all sort of come together over these last couple of weeks. They're playing a lot faster on offense. They're rebounding better. They're not turning the ball over, and I think that's one of the things you can say that is a result of Cousins not being out there. And so it's all come together. We'll find out a lot more against the schedule. You pointed out is home heavy, but also has a lot of really good teams. But they're fun to watch right now. I think they've done a tremendous job with the turnaround here over the last couple of weeks. And, the rest of this season, probably a postseason, and then an off season. We'll probably talk about that as well.
Yes.
It's going to be really interesting over the rest of this season and into the summer, seeing how this franchise continues to evolve.
Yeah, I would agree. Chris, what's your take?
Well, my take is this team's been able to weather a lot of storms. It hasn't always been easy going, certainly on this win streak, and I think when you do get on a win streak like this, 9 games in a row, the next game gets that much harder. You're going to get every team's best shot, and especially these last couple of games against the Kings and Clippers, especially the Clippers, they took a double-digit lead into, late in the game, and then all of a sudden in that fourth quarter it gets a lot closer, and the Pelicans have to weather a storm, and they've done a much better job of that. I think, with Demarcus Cousins, one thing that I noticed with him was he was that alpha. He was kind of that guy that wanted the ball and, for better or worse, took the ball at times. Now, without him, I think Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis have both become those alphas. And in times of turmoil or times when they need to be settled down, it's Anthony Davis and it's Drew Holiday stepping into those roles, something they haven't always done. Drew hasn't always been this aggressive. Anthony Davis, as we've talked about in that ESPN feature, saying he has to have a Russell Westbrook mentality. Do it. I mean, give the man 30 shots. He's going to make 16, 17 of them. And so that's been a big key for them. And another thing, you talk about the standings and, as close as they are to hosting, if they stay in fourth or moving up to third, you're just as close as, being 7, 8, 6 maybe, and not hosting. But in that regard, they've also won 7 in a row on the road. It's not just 9 games, it's 7 in a row on the road. So this team has proven, and they've really proven it all year long, that they are capable of playing on the road. And I think that's going to be big because in this Western Conference, there's a lot of teams like that. I think Minnesota's a team that can beat a lot of teams anywhere. I think the Pelicans can. Obviously, Golden State and the Rockets can. But when you look at 3 from Portland down to 8 right now, there's a lot of good teams that can play some good basketball times. But what the Pelicans have done right now, certainly one of the most impressive in the NBA outside of the Rockets, who are just unbelievable.
Yeah, Chris is so right, huh? I mean, literally staring at 3rd place, in 4th place, lose a few games, you could be 6, 7, 8, or you could be 9 and out of the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredibly competitive, and I look down there, and I think Utah is either 9th or 10th right now.
And they've won 4 in a row.
Yeah,
and
they probably are after the Rockets and the Pelicans. They're probably, and maybe the Warriors. They're probably the hottest team in the West right now. So I think they're headed upward. You can probably expect them to be in the top 8. So it's really jumbled down there. Minnesota losing Jimmy Butler, they're going through a difficult transition right now. The Spurs have done a great job of weathering injuries, but they still have a lot of injuries they have to deal with. So a lot of fluidity there. I think right now, the way the Pelicans have played and with some of the issues facing the other teams, they're in a fairly strong position. But Chris is right about the math. You have you hit a little lull there just for a week or so, and it could take you from hosting in the first round to really sweating out whether you even get in. And they're going to start playing. Utah comes in on Sunday. They're going to start playing some of these teams that they're competing with, and that can alter the standings dramatically as well.
Well, big scare last night with Anthony Davis getting the ankle injury. Again, the X-rays were negative. We don't know about the MRI at this point. He seemed to think in the post-game press conference that he's going to be okay, but he really wasn't going to let that know one way or the other. This team needs him on the court, and he's got to believe that I got to do everything I can. If I can walk, I'm playing.
Yeah, he's 100% got to be on the court. I think without Anthony Davis, this team can still win some games. They're not going to beat the quality of opponent they probably need to beat these next couple of games against the Wizards, Jazz, and then Hornets. It gets a little bit tougher than some of the teams like the Kings, like they played last night. And so they're going to need him back. I think without Anthony Davis, you don't necessarily build some of those 10, 12, 16-point leads like you do, and you might have to scrap a little bit more. In his absence, though, last night, missing a lot of that second half, very impressed with what Nikola Mirotic was able to do late in the game. I think he was 10 of 12 and 4 of 6 from three-point land for the game. So he stepped up. He's a guy who works. I mean, he's in there after games getting shots up. His defense, his rebounding has been surpassing, I think, a lot of expectations. But obviously, Anthony Davis is huge for what this team's been able to do. He's been the go-to guy. He's been absolute money down the stretch of games. So, if he can walk, he needs to get back out there. And in that regard, though, as much talk as there is about Anthony Davis being fragile or anything like that, the guy's come back in a lot of games.
Yes.
He's exited a fair amount of games per usual, but he's often fought his way back. If he goes in the locker room before halftime, he's probably going to be back out at some point in the third quarter, maybe even to start that third quarter. So give him a lot of credit. Since his shoulder surgery and getting that really taken care of, we haven't seen him go out and miss much extended time.
Yeah.
So credit him because he's playing through pain all the time, and he's always found a way to fight back into the game.
Right. And look, for the record, I called him fragile on the show the last couple of days, but he does come back and he does play, and he's got to play. He's been compared to Moses Malone, Will Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird. I mean, you go right down the line. You're talking about Hall of Fame players over the last month, the type of number he's been putting up. I mean, they threw Bob Lanier in there. I mean, you're talking about the 50 of the greatest players in the history of the NBA, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, he's been compared to all of these players, the type of numbers he's putting up right now.
Well, yeah, and he's an unusual, if not unique, talent in the skills of a smaller player in a big man's body, and you see it every night with some of the moves he makes around the basket and out on the perimeter. And one of the intangible things that I think maybe has been a result of the Cousins injury is that Davis has realized he has to carry this team to some degree or another every night. If it means taking 30 or more shots, he'll do it. He goes in, I think, with the mindset, and I think Rajon Rondo reinforces this in him. Go in thinking you need 40 points, 40 and 15, whatever it might take. just go in with that mindset. And I think he's taken over. And I think when Cousins was there, Cousins' personality as well as his need for the ball, because he's such a talented player, made it a little more difficult for Davis to take over the way he has in the past and is now doing again. So I think at this point he's taking on an approach like he has to play like an MVP every night. And the way Drew Holiday is playing with Rondo kind of orchestrating it, it's all fitting together now.
Yeah.
But the numbers he has put up are remarkable. During the winning streak, I think he's over 40 points on like 5 different games. He's averaging well over 30. And with the rebounds, the block shots, even the assists and steals, it's just been a remarkable run. And he is worthy of serious MVP consideration.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I do think Harden is the MVP because of what the Rockets have done this year, but you can't discount what Davis has done. I mean, the month of February was incredible. 35 points, 13 rebounds was his average. I talked about this last week on the show. He joined Moses Malone, are you hearing me? To average at least 35 points and 10 rebounds for the entire month of, and then he shot over 50% during the month of February as well. So he was taking good shots as well as, again, knocking down shots, rebounding, and, oh, by the way, blocking shots as well.
Yeah, he's making the big shots in the big moments. I mean, you don't necessarily want to see Anthony Davis shooting 6 or so threes a game, but in crunch time, he's knocked those down. And like you mentioned, he's been remarkable with just about everything he's done. And it's not just the timeliness of it, but, again, like Les mentioned, he realizes what he means to this team and what he has to do on a nightly basis. And, I think he's deservedly in that MVP conversation. I mean, it's tough only because part of the year he's played with Demarcus Cousins, and that may take away from it a little bit. But,
yes.
I mean, the Rockets have a number of all-stars themselves.
Yes.
So MVP or not, I think it's finally being recognized. Anthony Davis is one of the most skilled players in the league, maybe the most skilled player in the league in terms of what he can do and the plays he makes on a nightly basis.
Well, he's doing things I think we always thought he could do, but for some reason didn't do, and then now he's really kind of come into his own. But it's not just him. It's the entire team. I don't know where this team would be without Rajon Rondo right now.
Yeah, he's sort of an unsung hero on this team. His numbers aren't always that big. He's not even on the court at the end of games sometimes, and I think that partly because of his foul shooting and his inconsistent offensive game to some degree. But his smarts, his leadership, his idea, he knows who needs the ball when and where. His ability to get to the basket to set other people up, his ability to defend are all important. And I think there's a lot of stuff that he does that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And he's been a very important player to this team. And I think his presence forced Drew Holiday to adapt his role to some degree. And it took a while for Holiday to get used to that, as it would any player. And I think he's found his comfort zone now. And I think going through that transition has made Holiday a better player, and it's certainly made the Pelicans a better team. It was something I think we knew when Rondo came in, that there was going to be an adjustment of roles. And I think over these last couple of weeks, they've kind of gotten through that transition period, and they've figured it out.
Yeah. Les mentions Holiday, and I was one of the ones critical of him signing that big contract. I admit it, I was wrong. I didn't think that I knew he was a very good player. I didn't think he could play at this particular level. I knew he was a good defender, one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. I just didn't think he could carry a team. He deserves every single nickel of that contract he's gotten now, and he's playing at an all-star level. So, yes, I will eat crow gladly on that one.
Certainly on the defensive end, like you mentioned, there are just times in games where he takes over defensively, and I think it was the Bulls game a couple weeks ago. He really turned it up at one point, and I think it was when Boogie was still playing, but he mentioned, Boogie mentioned that Holiday's defense really fired the entire team up. Against the Suns game in the Smoothie King Center, second game of a back-to-back game, Devin Booker lightened him up. But for the first 10 minutes of that third quarter, Devin Booker did not score, I think, all but 2 points. And so that's another case where Drew Holiday comes out and plays terrific on-ball defense. Late in that Clippers game, when Lou Williams was spearheading a Clippers comeback, Drew Holiday plays some terrific on-ball defense, comes up with some big plays, big steals, and that's the kind of energy that they need to bring to the floor. And I think his defense and a number of other guys, when you look at that second unit like DeAndre Liggins, they get Solomon Hill back at any time. You really have some guys who can play some good lockdown defense. So if you don't have AD on the floor, at least you have some top-notch defenders.
And it seems like every player on this team right now is contributing in some way, and it also seems that their confidence level is very, very high.
Yeah, it's like the chicken and the egg. Which comes first, the confidence or the winning? Does the winning breed the confidence? I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but it's all come together during this 10-game winning streak. And you mentioned the Holiday contract. I think we should mention that, this was supposed to be and probably is this season a referendum on the GM and the head coach.
Yes.
And I'd have to say they've both passed with flying colors. Dell Demps gave Drew Holiday the money. Not an easy decision, as you pointed out. Turns out it was the right decision. The Cousins trade was a good trade.
Mirotic?
The Mirotic trade was absolutely essential. They had to do something. Okafor, not as big a deal, but something that has paid dividends.
Yes.
Rondo was a big pickup. And then, as long as we're doing mea culpas, I've written many times that I didn't like the firing of Monty Williams. I didn't like the hiring of Alvin Gentry. I don't think Gentry did a particularly great job the first 2 years.
Agreed.
But right now, here and now, you got to look at those two guys and where this team is now and their roles in getting them to where they are. Alvin Gentry's done a great job with this team this year, getting them through the Cousins injury, a lot of personnel changes, 10-game winning streak now, and Dell Demps gave him a lot of pieces that he needed. So, if those two guys' jobs were on the line based on how this team performs, up to this point, you have to say they've passed with flying colors.
Well, I'll have another serving of that crow. I'll have it baked because I'm on this diet right now instead of the normal fried that I would jump all over, because I agree with you. I've been very critical of Dell Demps. I've said that he didn't deserve an opportunity. 9 years here? Okay, general managers in the NBA don't last 9 months in some cases, but it's 9 years. And he's made some mistakes along the way. He's had a little bit of bad luck. There's no doubt about it. When you look at the injuries they've had to deal with players that he's brought in, he's made some bad deals. The Omer Sheik deal comes to mind. But what he has done within the last calendar year, going back to last year into this year, you mentioned it, re-signing Drew Holiday. Most people were against it. The Boogie Cousins trade looked like a trade of desperation, and you gave up a pretty good player in Buddy Hield to get him. Yet that has for the most part was working out. We'll see what happens in the future. We'll talk about Boogie in a few minutes, and then you mentioned it, the Mirotic deal. Where would they be without Mirotic? Okafor, who again 35 years old. I laughed when they brought him in. Okay, I literally laughed. So what's a 35-year-old guy that hadn't been in the league 4 years going to do? No, he's playing like he was playing when he was with the New Orleans Hornets. And then Ian Clark, Rajon Rondo. I mean, you can write down the line, Chris. I mean, he's pushed all the right buttons. So, yeah, I agree with Les. He deserves an opportunity to stay. And Alvin Gentry, he didn't get the pieces that he thought he was getting when he came to New Orleans. Those pieces were injured. Then they hit him with the blind side of Boogie Cousins. Now, all of a sudden, he's got this team of some cast-offs brought together, and they're playing the style of ball he wanted to play. I mean, this up-tempo style, which is really a good style to watch. I mean, for the fans, it's really a good style to watch, and they're playing to perfection.
It's just remarkable because all of a sudden, this roster that just didn't fit, it now fits. And you can still look at it. I mean, if you took away everything that we watched and just handed out NBA rosters, and I sat down and looked at a Pelicans roster, I'd say, wow, this doesn't fit. Like, how does this work? But it does. And I think credit goes to the GM, credit goes to the coach, credit goes to that locker room and having guys like Rajon Rondo and a big personality like Boogie, who's been an outstanding team guy. I mean, he posts pics on Instagram of him hanging out with, Ian Clark and some of the guys. I think, you can't say enough about what Anthony Davis has done as a leader as well, and some of what Gentry's mentioned him saying to the team before they take the court after halftime or something like that. But, they've really come together, and I think the biggest times you see it is when, it was a month ago maybe that in the third quarter this team was abysmal. I mean, they would play great the first and second quarter, might bounce back in the fourth, but that third quarter they were giving up leads or, allowing teams to go on huge runs to start the third quarter and putting them in a deficit. All of a sudden, that's not there anymore, and they've come together in that regard. And I think as they've gone, like Les mentioned, I think confidence and winning put together helps. But this team knows what they're capable of. They know what they should be doing. I think you don't see them playing down to opponents as much. Like last night against the Kings, they had their foot on the gas. A little bit of a scare in the fourth, but really they came back out, hit a couple big shots. Drew Holiday hit some big shots. Mirotic hit some big shots, and they handled business. And I think they are starting to see in themselves a team that has a shot to make something happen in the playoff, to host the playoff series, and to make some noise. So that's turning them and their attitudes into a winning team.
Chris, I'm going to stay with you on this. Let's talk Boogie Cousins now. Boogie Cousins told Pelicans TV last night that first of all that he's in the middle of that he hasn't started rehabbing yet. That he's really just doing upper body work, trying to stay in shape. If you see the pictures of him, the guy looks really good. It's not like he gained a lot of weight. I mean, obviously he's got to watch his weight going forward. He's got a nutritionist that he's utilized going back to the summertime that has been cooking his meals for him, making sure that he stays on point there. That's going to help to keep the weight off. And then next month, as he told Jen Hale, he's going to start the rehab part of this, and he expects to come back stronger than ever. He also told Jen Hale that he felt, talking about AD and the MVP type performance he had in February, that he felt like he was holding him back when he was on the court. He said it in jest, but you look at the difference in AD's play, and you say to yourself, some people are saying, well, do they really need Boogie Cousins? It's a dilemma for this franchise now. You don't have a lot of money under the cap if you don't sign him back. Does he want a max deal? Do you want to give him maybe a partial deal where, prove it to me for a couple years that you can come back and be the player that you once were? But there's going to be some teams out there that be maybe willing to max him out. So what do you do then? Dell Demps is in a tough spot here because also, by the way, this team is playing very, very well without Boogie Cousins. What do you do?
Well, I think the team is playing very well without Boogie Cousins, and winning in the NBA is tough. No matter who you're playing, especially when you're playing on the road, it's tough to win. So I don't want to, when I say this, I don't want to discredit what they've done, but they haven't been beating exactly elite teams. Now, the way they were playing with Boogie Cousins and what they had going, even the game he went down when they beat the best team in the NBA, the Rockets, I think that's the level they were on. Maybe not beating the Rockets in a 7-game series, but you can hang with some of those big dogs because of what they were able to do with the way Boogie was playing. I mean, the guy had, I think, 2 triple-doubles that week, the week before he got hurt.
He was playing incredible.
He was playing incredible basketball. The team was playing incredible, and they had something going there. Credit to what they've done now, but I don't know if this team has the upside that they had with Boogie. And again, looking forward, it depends on how he comes back from that Achilles injury. But I think, the guy seems determined. He's a hard worker. I think he sees that if he comes back to the Pelicans and what Anthony Davis has discovered in himself, what Drew Holiday is doing right now, and what Boogie can bring to the floor as well, the three of them really can be a big three, what they've been branded as when they re-signed Drew. And that's got to be alluring to the guy to get back out on the floor, to work hard, to come back, like you mentioned, stronger. And if he does, I don't have a problem with that. It's a tough decision. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. But I do think Boogie can have a positive impact on this team. I know you may not be able to keep guys like Mirotic in the $12.5 million if you have to deal him away, but I like the idea of bringing Boogie back.
Right. Anthony Davis spoke to the New York Times, and one of the things he said was he believes that Boogie will come back. I've mentioned the dilemma. I set the question up. What do you think, Les?
Well, I agree with everything Chris said. I think Cousins is – the fact that they're playing well now should not diminish how good a player Cousins is and what he could mean to this franchise going forward. It's a difficult decision. I don't think Dell Demps knows what he's going to do at this point. We have to see how this season plays out without him. How far can they go without him? There are a lot of financial considerations. There's the health consideration. I don't know if you can max him out if you're not sure where he's going to be health-wise. I do believe he'll do everything possible to get himself back to full health. But you just don't know if you can afford that kind of money. If you do keep him, can you keep Mirotic? Do you keep Mirotic, and then with the money you save by letting Boogie go, do you try and fit in some other pieces? It's really complicated. I think there are a lot of things to have to take into account, most significantly how this team finishes up. But the one thing I think is clear at this point is the organization is in a much stronger position than they were in before the injury, because at that point they were going to have to give him a max deal and keep him because they had no future if they let him go. Now with the Mirotić deal and the way they've played without Cousins shows that they still could have a future if they don't bring him back. And they have different options. Can they bring him back with a shorter deal, a less lucrative deal? So there are a lot of options there, and I think the organization's holding a much stronger hand than it was before the injury.
You see, I think Mirotić is a must-keep, and you've got him next year for $12 million. It's what's going to happen beyond that. The good thing is, with the way the salary cap works in the NBA, you have the bird rights for all these guys, for Boogie, for Mirotić, probably for AD, Jrue Holiday, etc. And it'll be interesting to see how they maneuver the cap to try to keep those guys. But I think it would be a real mistake on the part of Dell Demps to not have a guy that can shoot the ball like he shoots the ball, plays defense like he plays defense, and the ability to pass, and just the high basketball IQ that Mirotić has on the floor. I would love to have seen those four guys together and see what they could have done with a guy like Mirotić coming off the bench for this team with a Boogie Cousins on the floor. I think Boogie also has to change his game a little bit. I hope that he's watching this now and he realizes I don't have to be Sacramento Boogie King, but Boogie Cousins. The Kings Boogie Cousins was a guy that had to do everything. He doesn't have to do everything here. And I would hope also that Alvin Gentry has seen something in the way the ball is moving now, that he would not allow this to set up that the ball would move through Boogie when he comes back, if and when he comes back, and realize that a guy like Rondo or Holiday can get that ball moving a little bit better.
Certainly, I think that's one thing they have discovered along this win streak is some of their, go-to sets in those crucial situations where Jrue Holiday is directing the flow. If you have a guy like Boogie and AD on the floor, what you can do with pick-and-roll matchups and forcing different matchup issues can create a lot of problems for the other team. And the ball movement's been outstanding. I think Boogie did a good job of that. I mean, he was an assist man, and I think he is seeing, like you mentioned, that he held Anthony Davis back. But I think at some point, you can't have. I don't know if both of those guys can be alphas, but both of them can have some big games. And depending on what kind of lineups we're going to put on the floor, what I liked with Boogie was the fact that AD could get a little bit more rest at times, and you don't lose your scoring on the floor. You don't lose a dominant presence on the floor. And so if they could keep Boogie, AD, Jrue, and Mirotić, that would be outstanding to bring a guy like Mirotić off the bench and what they could do with some of those lineups. But it's going to be very tough.
Right. And look, right now the spacing on the floor is incredible. One of the problems that they had, I think, with Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis on the floor was spacing. And they're going to have to figure that out with two big guys on the floor.
Yeah, I think there's still complications in how you fit all these pieces together. The fact that Mirotić is able to come off the bench and that he plays a little different than Cousins does probably fits a little bit better with Davis. And so far, I think it's been better for them being able to fit all the pieces together. That's a big, important piece in Cousins that you don't want to get rid of, but at the same time, how all of that fits together is a complicated puzzle, and it's something Alvin Gentry will have to figure out if, in fact, they're able to bring all those pieces back.
You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight on the program, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports and Les East of CrestCitySports.com. We'll take a quick break to hear from our underwriters, and we'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or amcofencecompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Les East of CrescentCitySports.com, Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. Guys, finishing up on the Pelicans, been a lot of talk about the fan base not showing up, supporting this team. I went on my soapbox last week on this program. I've done it on my radio show. You know, the fans need something to cheer for, and they also are not stupid. They realize where the Pelicans have been in the pecking order of that organization on Airline Drive, whether it be with the football team, the horse racing stables, and then the Pelicans. I do believe that now the city is awake. They realize the Pelicans are playing really good basketball, and I really believe that from this point forward, especially this homestand, we're going to see big crowds in the Smoothie King Center. You guys both cover this team. You're at the games. You've seen the sparse crowds at times. You've seen big crowds when really good teams come in. What do you think happens?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot like that stretch run in, 2008, when they made it to the second round and almost beat the Spurs. Fans were understandably skeptical about this team until they saw that they were a legitimate contender to not only get into the playoffs, but maybe do something in the playoffs. The Pelicans are never going to generate a lot of enthusiasm during football season. Mardi Gras is a distraction. There's so much going on in this city that, you have to give people a reason to come out to the arena. They have a reason now. I think they've identified it. There's a great stretch of home games coming up against quality opposition. I think it's going to be sold out for the Washington game. I think it'll be loud on Friday night. And as long as they keep playing, I think it's going to build. I think it's going to be enthusiastic. And I think it'll be a lot like 2008 as long as the team keeps winning.
Yeah.
That's the, there's nothing that sells a team better than winning. And this team has proven that it deserves the type of support that we saw in 2008 and in other seasons. And I think we're going to start to see that now because I think the fans have recognized that this team deserves their support, and I think they're going to give it to them.
Chris?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you look at the last time they were in the playoffs, that 2014-15 season, and fans showed out. I mean, fans showed the city showed the team love, and I think they'll do it again. I remember I started at Fox 8 in the fall of 2015, and we had a Hoops game plan show because there was so much hype around the team coming off a playoff appearance and Alvin Gentry coming in, and then all of a sudden they start so poorly that it just, you pull the bottom out. I mean, fans were ready to explode. The city will embrace basketball, but you just got to give them a good product. Certainly the Pelicans have over this win streak, and I think if they continue to do so, you can build steam toward the playoffs. I mean, if they host a series, and even if they're in the playoffs, when they do get games here, it'll be a lot of fun in the Smoothie King Center. The NBA as a whole does an outstanding job at all their games. Fans in the stands or not, I think the NBA is very fan-geared.
Yes.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of women and children that may not necessarily be into the games, but they still like going to NBA games because of the production that they put on. So when you put in a winning product as well, I think we're going to see a big turnout at the Smoothie King Center, and it's going to be a lot of fun because there's really not much outside of pro football that can generate the pulse-pounding action of a close basketball game going back and forth, especially with the brand of basketball the Pelicans play up and down the floor.
Well, there's no doubt. And you look at Chris Paul in his heyday here. You look at Pistol Pete Maravich in his heyday here. And now you're looking at Anthony Davis. You're talking about guys that are going to be, there's no doubt in my mind that Chris Paul's going to be looked at as a Hall of Famer. He may be a first ballot Hall of Famer before it's all said and done. Davis keeps playing the way he is. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, there's no doubt. But again, he's got a long way to go. He's in his young part of his career now. But, he's putting up incredible numbers right now. Let's shift gears to the college game. LSU playing in the SEC tournament, taking on Mississippi State. As we are live with our broadcast, they finished the season 8-10, 17-13. Your thoughts on the Tigers? To me, they're playing for an NIT bid. Some have said they got a shot at the NCAA tournament. They'd have to win the SEC tournament, which would give them the automatic bid. Maybe if they got to the championship game, they'd have a chance because they'd have 20 wins. But, I think the losing record in the conference during the regular season really hurts them.
Yeah, I don't see them getting an at-large bid to the NCAA, even if they make the SEC championship. They'd have to get the automatic bid, I think, in order to get in. I think you would have to say that Will Wade's first season's probably been satisfactory. They've shown improvement. I think he's gotten pretty much what you would like to see out of what he had to work with. It was a little disappointing. I think at midseason they won their first 2 SEC road games, I believe, and then they kind of hit that lull in the middle of the conference season, finished strong at home, won their last 6 home games, I believe. So maybe fans got a little spoiled early on and thought this might be the type of team that could make a run at the NCAA tournament. Weren't able to do that, but I think realistically they've had the kind of season that you would have hoped for in his first year. So I think fans should be encouraged by that. I think they have a pretty good shot at an NIT bid. I've heard that they were actually projected as being virtually a lock for the NIT if they don't get in the NCAAs. Yes. That surprises me a little bit. I didn't think their position was quite that strong, but I do think they'll probably be playing beyond the SEC tournament, but it won't be in the NCAAs unless they somehow steal that tournament title.
Yeah, I would agree. Chris, what's your take?
Yeah, certainly. I'm definitely satisfied with what we've seen from Will Wade. I think, like Les mentioned, he's built on what he's had. It's just a couple of games here and there, and I think that comes with the territory of having a young team, a home game versus Alabama that they were in, a home game versus Georgia that they lost by 1 point early in SEC play. Those games make a big difference in turning your SEC record around and getting you to that 20-win mark. So I don't see them being an at-large bid, but getting this team postseason experience with the guys coming back would certainly be a big help going into next year with the guys they have coming in and really being able to build a team that's more ready for SEC play and more ready for the tournament. I just think they're a bit guard heavy. They kind of lived and died by how Tremont Waters played at times. He brought the energy, and he was on in non-conference play in the start of SEC. When he had some off games, the Tigers wouldn't win because they lived and died by his 3 balls. And so even when he's on, some of those shots he takes are Steph Curry range that aren't high probability, so it's tough to win like that. They've got some bigger guys coming in next year that they'll be able to play more of an all-around game. But yeah, solid start. It'll be interesting to see if they can make some noise in the SEC tournament, but I think they put the rest of the conference on notice at least that Will Wade's coming. They were predicted to finish last. They certainly don't finish last, and really the SEC as a whole got better at basketball this year, so it'll be a lot fun, a lot more fun.
I'll tell you what, Tulane's record may not show up, but I really think they're in really good hands with Mike Dunleavy. You just look at how much better the players have gotten under his coaching. Frazier's going to possibly could be a first-round pick, which is, who would have thought that, when he first came to Tulane's campus. They're 5-13 in the conference, 14-16 overall in the American. They play Temple in the American tourney. Your thoughts on Dunleavy and what he's been able to do? Obviously, no tournament for Tulane, but they've gotten better. The problem is now, you lose 2 pretty good players off that team.
Yeah, you do, and I think you've seen incremental progress from last year. Maybe not as dramatic as you would have hoped, but you've seen some progress there. And I think you touched on one of the things that maybe gets overlooked sometimes, and that is player development. Basketball, especially when you look at like SEC programs, and Kentucky being the biggest example, where it's just like it's all recruiting. You bring in these high school studs, and you just win with talent. And maybe you have to turn over every couple of years, but it's all about recruiting and the talent you have. Well, not every programs like that, and certainly Tulane's not going to be like that. You want to recruit good players, but at the same time, you have to develop players, and you're probably going to have guys for 3 or 4 years that other schools might not have. So the fact that players are showing development under Dunleavy and his staff, I think, is encouraging, because that's the way they're going to have to build the program. Solid recruiting, but player development once they get those players in the program. I think we're seeing signs of that to begin with. You would hope to see more improvement next year, but as you pointed out, that there's going to have to be some recruiting done to replace the guys who are losing.
He can recruit on an international basis. We've seen that. You see how much better Cam's got, how much better Frazier's gotten just over the last couple of years under his coaching. I mean, that's got to be something that's got to be appealing to the young player that maybe wants to go to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Dunleavy's obviously a guy who spent a lot of time, all of his time in the NBA before coming to Tulane, and so he knows how to develop players, how to send them to the next level, what NBA head coaches and scouts and GMs are going to be looking for. Like Les mentioned, I think player development's big because that's not only the way they got to build this program, but that's the way you're going to win. When I talked to Coach Riley down at Nicholls State and his senior-heavy roster, one of the things he told me is old guys win, and it's true. I mean, when you there's something to be said for, a team like Kentucky or a Duke or somebody's going to have a ton of raw talent, and a lot of times that talent's going to win, obviously. But there are situations, especially in a conference like the AAC, that does have some studs like Cincinnati, but there's some games that Tulane left out there that they can win, that when you have those older guys that know how to play in those situations, they can win. Frazier's a junior, so he might be back. You got to believe if he's really feeling first round and feeling confident in that, he's going to go. But I like what Dunleavy's been able to do with these guys, and if they can continue to build, I think there's a couple games out there that they can win that they were in. They just got to compete a little bit better, but it's been progress.
Yeah, the Privateers, Coach Les had a storybook season last year. They're 11-7 in the conference this year. They're at 515-15 in the South, and they beat Corpus Christi last night. They're taking on Sam Houston. The Southland is pretty close. I mean, you mentioned Nicholls. Nicholls is 15-3, 21-10 overall. Southeastern, who won the conference, 15-3, 21-10. They're the number one seed. I mean, you look at all those teams; they're pretty much jumbled together. But when you look at Nicholls, as you mentioned, senior leadership there, they brought in some guys, some transfers that really have helped them. The Southland's pretty bunched up.
Yeah, it is, and I think. In a league like that, when it comes to the conference tournament, that senior leadership can make a big difference. And, what do you say, old guys win?
Old guys win, man.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's true.
And that's something they have going for them. You would hope with all those local schools, with the regular seasons they've had, you would hope one of them would be able to come through the conference tournament and get the automatic bid. I'm not sure who that's going to be. UNO, to this point, has not had the type of year it had last year, but I think they're still capable of competing to the end of that tournament. Maybe they can sneak back in. Southeastern, I think, is certainly a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and Nicholls as well, right? Because you've gone down there and talked to the coach down there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was surprised, not taking anything away from Southeastern. I was surprised that, not that Southeastern won, but the way they really dominated that game.
Well, they lost two players because of that off the court incident.
Yeah, they lost two players. They had a player who was shot in the arm and seen behind the bench with his arm in a sling. And I think that emotional up and down and seeing what they've gone through and losing a guy off the team suspended right now has kind of propelled them and given them some motivation. It'll be key to see how long they ride that. I mean, Nicholls and Southeastern, the biggest benefit of finishing 1-2 in the Southland Conference tournament or getting those top two seeds is that you have the double bye. So they don't play in the semifinals on Friday. It's going to be a matter of what team can prepare, what team's able to sit there and watch teams play and then have the mental fortitude to go out there after having 6 days off and go out there and play your best basketball against teams that they're probably tired, but they're going to be playing hot. And so we'll see what UNO can do right now, but they're another team. They lost their last three going into the tournament, but if they get hot, I mean, they've got some guys that were there last year. Scott Plaisance, a very quality player. Traven Thibodeau, who was there in the NCAA tournament last year. You can't count them out. And so, like you guys mentioned, I hope one of them does make the NCAA tournament. It's always fun to have a team in the tournament. But certainly, one of them is deservedly.
Well, we got one that I think may, and it's probably the biggest secret in Louisiana. Oh, by the way, here's another secret. The Sun Belt Conference is in New Orleans. Their tournament is here. The conference headquarters is here, and there'll be a basketball tournament going on. Actually, it's going on right now through the weekend. And ULL is 16-2 in the conference, 26-5 overall. When I went back and looked at the standings today, it even shocked me, and I'm one that looks at this, continuously. 26-5 is nothing to shake a stick at.
No, it's not. And I was out there earlier today, saw some of the women's action, and the UL men will play at 11:30 on Friday. They had a bye into the, I guess it's the quarters. So I'll get a first-hand look at them tomorrow. But, 26-5, and that large bid's not out of the question if things don't work out in this tournament. Obviously, they don't want to leave any doubt. They want to go through and win the tournament, and they'll be favored to do that. But 26-5 is pretty impressive. You do that in any conference. What do they have? 2 losses in the conference, I think you said. So you do that in any conference, that's quite an accomplishment. This is a team that has some senior leadership. It has a lot of depth. It's got the Bryce Washington from St. Augustine, has been a good player there for 4 years now.
1,000 guy.
Averages a double-double. So he's one of the key players to that team. So I think that's a team that if you do make it out to the Sun Belt Conference tournament, keep an eye on UL. I think that they'll probably boost the attendance a little bit here on Friday. And as long as they stay alive into the weekend, I think that'll be good news for the Sun Belt, because you'll have a lot of fans dressed in red out there rooting for them.
Right,
I'm eager to see them because they've had a heck of a season. I'd like to see them up close.
A lot of those fans that like me saying ULL, they want me to say University of Louisiana. You've talked a little bit about them.
Yeah, they've played great basketball. They've got the seniors. They've got the depth. A guy like Jonathan Stove went to Christian Life in Baton Rouge, and he's a senior there now. I did a feature story on Bryce around Mardi Gras. His parents were King and Queen of Zulu, and Bryce was saying, coming into the year, he looked at the roster and saw the seniors and saw guys like him and Jonathan Stove and said, "We're good. Like we're gonna win," because they see the pattern of, again, old guys win, and they knew what they were capable of, and they've gone out there and proved it. Now, I haven't checked their RPI recently. I know as of maybe 6 weeks ago or so, it wasn't high. So I do think if they're going to get in that large, they at least need to be in the championship game of the Sun Belt tournament. But certainly, if they win it, I'd love to see them maybe get like a 12 seed. I think that'd be a fun 5-12 upset. They can beat some teams, and I'd love to see them get a chance in the dance.
Shifting gears to the Saints, can't believe we're almost finished the show. We're shifting gears to the Saints. The big story this week, Jimmy Graham. Will Jimmy Graham be a New Orleans Saint? Should Jimmy Graham come back to New Orleans? Should the Saints re-sign him? I'm of the opinion, I've got no problem with Jimmy Graham coming back. It just got to be at the right price. I don't think you overpay for Jimmy Graham. Les?
Well, I think that's the key to the whole thing. I can understand why the Saints would be interested in Jimmy Graham. They have to upgrade the pass catching at tight end. I can understand why Jimmy Graham would want to come back here, play for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, with whom he had so much success earlier in his career. He is going to have a more limited role than he had when he was here previously if he comes back. The Saints are not as reliant on the passing game. When they do throw it, Michael Thomas is going to be the number one guy. They're going to run the ball more, and Jimmy Graham's not going to be on the field when they want to run the ball a lot of the time. So he'll have a more diminished role, so he'll have to accept a contract that reflects that, although maybe they can build some incentives in there. So I would expect there would be mutual interest there. The question is whether or not they can come together on the terms that make sense for the Saints, bringing back a guy who's going to have a more diminished role. And also, this is a very strong year for tight ends in the draft, so the Saints don't have to overpay in free agency to address that need.
Great point.
Yeah, I think teams are going to go big for tight ends. There's probably going to be someone who offers more for Jimmy Graham because of the dynamic nature of that position. It's also a matter of health. He wasn't healthy too often before he left for Seattle in his last year or two. And then in Seattle, he obviously wasn't very healthy. So there comes a question of, you have to weigh that factor in. There's another guy by the name of Tyler Eifert, similarly had some health issues, a free agent coming from the Bengals. I'd love to see what his price range is, and if that's a guy the Saints might be interested in, because he's another receiving tight end. And like Les mentioned, with guys like Dallas Goedert from South Dakota State, Mark Andrews from Oklahoma, it's a good tight end draft, and I think the Saints have the capabilities and maybe the picks if they needed to trade into the second round to get one of their guys at tight end. They could do it and get it a lot more inexpensive. I think the main thing you want to find is reliable hands, a guy who can run the seam route, maybe do some of the things Jimmy did a couple of years ago. But there's a lot of, I don't want to say there's a lot of guys who can do what Jimmy Graham does. There's a lot of bodies out there like Jimmy Graham now because of what the tight end position has become for a lot of teams as more of a receiver. The Saints just got to find the right guy.
Your thoughts on the signing of Kirk Coleman?
I do like the signing of Kirk Coleman. He's a veteran guy. Rather than playing, I think, more around the line of scrimmage like Kenny Vaccaro did, he's more of a ball hawk type, which maybe he can be covering tight ends. My biggest thing, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but one thing we saw from that Saints secondary last year was the way they gelled together and the chemistry, the team photo celebration, how much they enjoyed each other, how much Kenny Vaccaro enjoyed that group and vice versa. So it's a certain culture they've built in that unit, and I think Kirk Coleman comes in and fits in well. He is an Ohio State guy,
yes.
So we'll fit in well with Von Bell and Marshawn Lattimore. But I do like the idea of bringing in a vet who's played for a great defense the last 3 seasons.
Right, and you're also taking, even though they cut him, you're taking a player off of a division opponent. Your thoughts on Kirk Coleman?
Well, I agree. I mean, they had to address the safety position. They may still address it some more. There's a good chance Kenny Vaccaro is going to get an offer that the Saints won't be interested in matching because he's not going to be as valuable to them as he might be to some other team that needs to upgrade at safety. So I think it makes sense to bring him in. I don't know if he's going to replace what Kenny Vaccaro had, but it gives them another solid veteran in that group. I think it's a good move.
Brees' contract gets done before the 14th?
Probably. If not, I think it gets done shortly thereafter. I'm not concerned about that getting done.
You worry about the $18 million in dead money coming due if it's not done by the 14th?
Well,
that's the proverbial gun to the head.
Yeah, and that's why it probably will get done before then. But as far as him getting away, that's not going to happen, and I would expect that it would get done before the 14th.
Chris?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the priority is Brees and getting that done so you can address what you need to address to make that next step. I mean, look, I hate to speculate and go back to it. They're a missed tackle away from going to Philadelphia. Now, Philly played great. Who knows what happens? They play a susceptible Patriots defense. Look, there's a lot of things that could have happened this year, but they're going to try to address what they need to do to get them over that hump. And the team's in a great place right now. Getting Brees back helps.
Yeah. And look, next time we have you guys back, we'll talk more about prospective quarterbacks that may be coming on this team. A lot of talk about Baker Mayfield, etc. The first priority is obviously getting Brees signed, and then figuring out how much money you have under the cap so you can be a player in free agency. And I'm sure Mickey Loomis has got this mapped out. Look, I don't think they would be saying the things they have been saying if they didn't really feel this deal was going to get done. And then we've heard Peyton, we've heard Loomis, we've heard Brees talk about this, so I think it's definitely going to get done. Les East, Chris Hagan, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Great job as always. They do a fantastic job. What a crew here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. You can catch us statewide on Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 p.m. every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio. That is noon to 2 on Sports 1280 and 101.1 FM HD2. The Eifert radio app is a free download for your smartphone or tablet. You can listen live or download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. And also, you can check us out at sports1280.com for all the podcasts of our great shows. Want to give special thanks to our guests tonight, Les East and also Chris Hagan. Also to the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Trey Lopez, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisbee's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbeesrestaurant.com.